Hello and welcome back to another video. This week we're going to be making the N-Scale engine shed Metcalfe kit. So let's take a look and see how that goes.
So the first thing we need to do is get our Metcalfe dropper bottle and fill that up with some Yoo-hoo glue. This will make it much easier for us to apply the glue to the model as we go. I then tried to cut out some of the parts using a knife. This didn't really work, it seemed to just tear the card. So getting some decent scissors and using them instead was the preferred option. Here we are cutting out one of the side walls. And now we need to cut out the window strips. We're going to cut these into the strips first and then cut the individual windows out, making sure not to lose any because they become really small once they're cut out, and as they're see-through they could be easily lost. So I've stuck the outer wall and the inner hard cardboard together and glued in the windows. Next we need to cut out the inner wall. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And then once we get that out, we apply a little bit of glue. And then stick the inner wall to the back of the outside wall. Making sure of course that we get all of the edges lined up nicely. What I'm doing here is I'm getting some paint and marking up the white edges so that when it's glued on, you don't see those white edges. I'm now going to add some glue to the gable end so that I can stick that all together. This is for the shed wall, making sure that those edges are all lined up. Now we've got the workshop back wall. This has got the door on it, so we're going to glue that to the outside wall. Making sure that's all lined up nicely. Now we're adding some more glue onto one of the wall pieces. This is for the other side of the shed. Cutting out some more of the pieces that I need. Popping out those windows. And then adding some more glue. This does become a regular thing of adding quite a lot of glue to quite a lot of pieces. Now I can glue the wall to the part that we just cut out, making sure that's all lined up. You can see that the outside wall shows through those windows, which is what we wanted. And now on the shed gable end we can fold back the inner doors and then paint along this edge to hide those white lines. We don't want those white lines showing once the model is constructed. It just makes it look a little bit nicer if they are painted up. We're doing the same here on the front gable wall so that you can't see the edges along the door folds. Some more glue being applied to that front gable wall so that we can attach it to the actual side wall of the engine shed itself. I do go off camera a little bit here, apologies, but there we go. Sticking that on, making sure that the wall folds back to a 90 degree and that it's all lined up in the correct place, and pop a peg on it to hold all that in place so that I can get on and do something else. I'm going to add some glue along the inside wall here so that this can be added to the inside of the building. I do actually add this the wrong way around and it gets taken off and reversed at a later stage, so you might see that happen, but the inside wall should be facing inwards. Now I need to fix the workshop door to the workshop wall, so a bit more Yoo-hoo glue. I decided to keep the door closed on this, so we'll stick that to the wall, just like that, making sure that it's all lined up and in the correct place. And then time to cut out some more pieces. These are the workshop inner wall, inner back wall, and back walls. Gluing on the window onto that back wall. Sticking that on and making sure that it's all lined up in the right place. And once that's dry, we can add some glue to the inner back wall and then glue that to the back of the outer back wall. Using our pegs again to keep everything in place until it all dries. Once that has dried, I can put some glue along those grey edges. That's going to be the points that we connect the wall to the building, like this. Hold them in place just to let them glue and then pop a peg on. Now we get some pieces of wall to go along the edge of the bottom of that wall to fill in that gap to join up the brickwork, making sure that's all nicely lined up. A bit more painting of the edges to hide the white card after it had been cut. This is another piece of that brickwork. Add some glue. Then this is one of the corner pieces. Add that on. Just like that. Holding it in place. Now we're going to cut out the parts for the roof struts. There's 3 of these. These are quite fiddly. Now once they're all cut out, we need to pop out the parts from the centre. Add some glue onto the edges. And then pop them into place. They are really fiddly, so you do need to hold them in place at a full upright position so that they can dry. Here we are popping some glue onto the top of that outside wall to hide up the grey. I've added some pegs at the end of that wall to keep them at 90 degrees, but those roof struts are in place. I'm going to add some of the wood finishing to that gable wall. There we are, looks like that. Then we add some glue to this part, and this goes across the top of the door. Here I ended up putting some Yoo-hoo glue along the contact points of those roof struts because they weren't gluing for some reason. Now I'm cutting out the actual roof itself, and then give it a bit of a fold. You can see that there's some white lines again, which are going to need painting. So we'll get some grey paint and paint those up. I did make it a little bit darker because I wanted the effect that coal had all fallen onto the roof. Not sure if it worked out too well, but it looked okay. Do the edges as well to make sure that all the white is hidden. And then once you're happy, pop on some Yoo-hoo glue along those edges. And fix the roof, making sure that all of the overhangs are equal all the way around. And once it's in place, just leave it to dry. Add some more of that wood finishing. Popping on some glue. And then fixing it over the top of the piece that we put on earlier. This one's a little bit of a bigger piece. The other one was like a spacer. And we'll do the same at the other end in the workshop. So glue on. And then stick that to the wall. This is the workshop roof, so we'll go and cut that out. This one doesn't need folding, so we can pop some glue straight on. This time for some reason I decided to put the glue on the roof rather than on the walls. But fix it on and pop it in place, making sure it all overhangs exactly the same all the way around. Right, so we're cutting out the spacers for the chimney pots here. We need 4 of each, so 4 for each pot. And 4 of them, so 4 fours. Then I'm going to glue them together to make a kind of chimney sandwich. Making sure they all line up nicely. Otherwise, when we come to wrap the chimney around them, it'll look uneven. There we go. That's 1 chimney pot created, and we need to do that for the other 4. Here's some I made earlier. Cutting out the chimney pots themselves now. And pop them out from that card. We have 4 of these, and they just easily fold, just like this. More white lines that's going to need to be painted. But you can see how that's going to work. So around the edge of those chimney spaces we'll pop on some Yoo-hoo glue. And then wrap the chimney pot card around, making sure that the inner spacer is flush with the top of the card. We repeat the same for the other long spaces that we have, and this is for the workshop chimney. I did find that these were a little bit too long, so I did have to trim them down ever so slightly because the chimney wouldn't go all the way in. Making sure that all those edges are nice and flush, like we did before. And then cut out the chimney pot for this one. Folding it all round. Again, some white lines that need to be painted. And then gluing it onto the spacer. And that's the workshop chimney completed. pushing out some of the wooden spacers here, popping on some glue. These go underneath the roof on the back of the workshop. I did do this in the wrong order, and it had to come off because there's a smaller one that goes in between the wall before the longer one goes on. So that's actually wrong. There should be a smaller one first. Here you can see I've taken it off and I'm putting the smaller one that should have gone on first. Just like that, and it goes in between those two walls. And then popping that longer one back on. That's what it should look like. We got some smaller ones now. They've got like angled edges, and these go on the sides of the wall. They are a little bit fiddly. And some more wall wrap, I like to call it. So we'll pop that on the bottom here. This just joins up that brickwork around the edges. These pieces go along the bottom of the window to create like the window sills. 4 of those, and these are super fiddly to make sure that they're completely level, straight and right. And then there's some that go across the top of the windows, which have been added on here already. And we repeat that for both sides. They've got some bricks. These get fitted in between the pillars of the windows, so there's 3 of those for each side. Popping on some glue and then sticking them on. And repeating that for all 6 of those. That's what it should look like. 3 bricks for the pillars. There's a part to go above the workshop door, like with the other windows, so we added that on. Now we're painting the top of the chimney pots, making sure they're nice and black, because they wouldn't be grey. So repeat that for all 4 of those. This is what the workshop looks like so far. Looking pretty good. Especially for my first model, that's for sure. Some more of that bottom wall. Adding on to the workshop end. And popping the chimneys in. These just literally slot into those holes. No glue required. They just snugly fit straight into those holes. Painting up the top of that workshop chimney. That needs to be blackened out as well. Making sure to get all around the edge of the cardboard too, so that the white lines are hidden. Now I'm cutting out some pieces of roof that go in between the chimney. These are like tiles to cover up the white bits, I think, but they're really fiddly to fold, and you do need to trim them down once they've cut, because I didn't get them the right length. But once they are the right length, some glue can go on, and then they can be glued to the roof. Cutting 4 of them, or actually I think it might be 5. So here's some glue going onto those pieces. Again, another off-camera shot, something that I need to improve on when I'm doing modelling. And then stick them straight onto the roof. And then that's what it looks like once they're all glued on. These are the workshop doors, or the shed doors that go on the front of the shed. We cut them out and fold them, some white lines again that need to be painted. Popping along some glue along the shed edge, and then gluing the doors on. As you can see, there's quite a lot of white there that's going to need to be painted up. Making sure that the doors are set to the correct angle that you want for how you want your model to look. This is the chimney stack for the top of the workshop chimney. This goes on to 2 spaces. This is the biggest one that goes on the bottom. Then we've got a smaller one that goes on the top of that one. And then the chimney stack itself goes on top of the smaller one. And then all of it gets glued to the top of the chimney itself. Here you can see what that stack looks like before it's glued onto the chimney itself. And this is the shed completed. I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. It looks really good. As I said, there's a few things that I would do differently for my next one. There's quite a lot of white edges that I should have covered up, but it looks quite good. I may go back later and fill those in. But thanks so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.